Hey everyone, it's Scott from Norebbo.com again, and yep, I'm taking a little break from my aircraft illustrations. Anyway, yeah, I've been trying to get back into 3D modeling a little bit, and what you're seeing here is a Tesla Cybertruck 3D model that I created several weeks ago. And in this video, I'm going to take you through the process of what it took to actually build it. So, yeah, as you can tell by the title and thumbnail of this video, this Cybertruck was built entirely within Maya. And you know, I can't even say that I am an expert in Maya. I kind of know what I'm doing, but I don't. But, you know, I've actually built a few cars in Maya in the past, so I do have some experience with this. You know, polygon modeling is very forgiving. It's not that hard if you just spend some time with it, and doing a Tesla Cybertruck didn't seem all that of a complicated thing for me to do on my own, and that's why I tackled this. You know, besides, I like the design of the Cybertruck, so yeah. Anyway, just like any automotive 3D model, it's best to start with the best reference material that you can find, and what you're seeing here is what I found on the internet. I just did a Google search for Tesla Cybertruck blueprints, and I believe this was the first result, and it looked fairly good. So I took the images, made a few adjustments to get everything lined up fairly decently, and I ran with it. And yeah, in terms of building the model itself, what you see me doing here is I started off with the wheel wells. And, you know, that's usually a safe place to start when you're doing cars, because that is the base of the model. And once you get that established, it's fairly easy to go in and start, you know, building off of those. And again, with polygon modeling, you just build one polygon at a time, and you just build outwards. And when it comes to the Cybertruck, it was so incredibly easy because it's just so angular and so flat. It's just, you know, it was designed with a polygon modeler. It probably wasn't, but, you know, you could totally imagine that it was. Anyway, I didn't have any particular game plan for this particular model, just simply because it was so simple, and I figured that I could just do a panel at a time like I normally do for any automotive 3D model, but it turns out that I actually got the basic shape of the body built within several hours, which is a record for me, because automotive modeling, whether it's in Maya or 3D Studio Max or whatever, it's incredibly intense, and it's just really hard to get things right. And you know, the Tesla Cybertruck is so simple that, you know, even I could do it in a very short amount of time. It was a massive confidence builder, to say the least, and just having that confidence going into a model like this is everything, because you don't want to get frustrated, and it's, you know, you need that motivation to continue on when things get tough, and things do get tough. And there were some points in this model that were difficult, which I'll get into later. But for the most part, you're looking at fairly basic modeling right here. I think the biggest challenge that I had at this point was just trying to get all the angles right, because there is some taper to some of these shapes, especially the doors as they go down to the bottom of the car. And it's kind of hard to see that in the reference material. So what you don't see is I actually had an iPad sitting next to my screen, and I was just thumbing through different pictures of the Tesla Cybertruck that I had gathered previously, so I could just, you know, if I got stuck on something, I could just take a break and I could just swipe through those photos just to see what was actually happening with the shape of the vehicle in a particular section that I was having trouble with. So yeah, so not only do you need the reference material, the four views or the three views, top, back, side, left, right, whatever, you also need good photos as you're doing this, because otherwise it's just going to look weird and not correct when it's finished. That even applies to this Tesla Cybertruck, because, you know, even though it looks so simple, it's not. You know, I had no idea it was this complex until I actually started modeling it. And, you know, you live and you learn. I figured this model was going to take maybe a few days to do. It ended up taking about a week. But, you know, that's okay. That's the way it goes sometimes. And if you're new into 3D modeling and you don't have a lot of experience with this, just know that everything is going to take a lot longer than you expect. Always. Every single model that I ever do, unless it's something really simple, it always takes longer. But that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so I'm working on the little details now. The main body is done, And this, I tell you what, this back section right here, where all those points come together, just right at the corner, the side panel, the tailgate, and then that top section, that was a nightmare. Simply because I wanted to make this a very detailed model, and I was not going after low poly here. I wanted to have nice, smooth, rounded corners. I mean, everything has a rounded corner in real life. I mean, even something as angular as a Tesla Cybertruck, it has, if you really look closely enough, it has rounded corners at every transition, and I wanted to get that, so I made I made more trouble for myself by adding edge loops everywhere, and it was kind of a mess. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but hey, you know, like I said, I am not a Maya expert. I learned a lot from this model, and if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't add so many edge loops. What I would do is I'd keep everything non-smoothed, just leave it raw polygons, but then I would add bevels, not edge loops, at every corner and transition. It would have been a lot cleaner that way, a lot simpler. And I tell you what, the time that I spent working on this Tesla Cybertruck 3D model could have been cut in half if I didn't go in and try to smooth everything. It was just a nightmare, and it was a learning experience. So, yeah. You know, looking at this now, I'm trying to think back at what I was thinking when I was modeling these sections. It gets to a point where you kind of want more detail in a model. I found the Tesla Cybertruck to be overly simple, and as a 3D modeler with a little bit of experience, I don't know what, I mean, I've been doing it for 15, 20 years, but I haven't been full-time 3D modeling. But anyway, long story short, I know what makes a good 3D model, and that is detail. When you have a lot of surfaces, a lot of transitions, you want as much detail in little widgets and trinkets and cuts and folds and flaps as you can, because it makes for a really interesting 3D model. But the Tesla Cybertruck is so simple that, I don't know, I was starting not to like the design as I was going through this, because when you get to the final renderings and it's just basically a slab of wedges, it doesn't really make for some interesting renderings and, you know, and animations and all that kind of stuff. But it is what it is, and, you know, I tried my best to get all the detail that I could. You know, it's especially with the window section here, and even though it was just a solid piece of glass with some body panels or some door edges on the inside of the glass that you wouldn't actually see, I still cut those out of the glass and made those separate elements just to try to get some detail on there, just so it wasn't so flat and plain. But there are some neat details, though, and more specifically, like what I'm working on here is this LED light bar at the top of the windshield. And to be honest, I didn't even know that was there until I started doing this model and looking at the reference material. It's just one of those little details that I missed, which is pretty cool. And what am I doing? This is moving so fast. Like I said, it's a time-lapse, sped-up version of my process. And it looks like now I've got all the modeling done, and I'm just going in and doing all of the adding some depth to these panels, which is, I gotta say it's not my favorite part of these 3D models. When you do a car and you start adding in all the details that you probably don't even see, like adding depth to panels and then rounding the edges, it's a lot of work. It's hours and hours worth of work for, you know, something that most people aren't even really going to notice unless you do a very close-up rendering, and it's just a pain. And here we go. This is the corner that I'm trying to get that. Again, it's moving so fast, but that corner where that rear quarter panel and the tail, that tail section there, that transition, a total nightmare. And I ended up rebuilding that like 4 or 5 times, which added a lot of time to my overall project, which is it's frustrating, but that's the way it goes. And here, I didn't realize there was actually some shape to that, the bottom of the windshield, so I had to go back in and I had to add a little bit of curvature there. I thought it cut straight across, but then again, looking at all the reference material, I had to go back in and reshape that portion. And I tell you what, I guess I'm a solid modeler by practice, or that's what I learned. I learned solid modeling using Form Z way back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I didn't start picking up polygon modeling until maybe 6 years ago or so. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that I love polygon modeling, so making a change, if I notice a mistake somewhere, I can go back in very easily and make an update without destroying the entire model, which was a good thing because I did make a lot of mistakes on this model, and I had to go back and fix everything that I didn't do right the first time. So it looks like now I'm just kind of duplicating everything over. And then if you didn't notice before, basically what I do is I build half of a model. And then once I get that half looking okay, I then mirror it, or I copy it and then mirror it to the other side. And then I weld everything together. I weld the vertices together. Again, it's a long process for, a detail that most people don't even appreciate, but it's just one of those things about automotive modeling and modeling symmetrical objects like this. It's a lot of busy work. But yeah, so what have I got going on here? Trying to reshape a few things, adding. I remember totally. So the Tesla Cybertruck is very angular, and like I said, I was trying to build a smooth model. I wasn't going to leave my polygons unsmooth. I really wanted to smooth everything out, and that was a pain in the butt, trying to get everything sharp in the corners. I should have just left everything as raw polygons and beveled where necessary, instead of trying to add edge loops and trying to smooth everything. Lesson learned, totally. And that was something that I fought with for a very long time on this particular model, and it was frustrating to say the least. So if you actually look at my final model and you get up underneath it and you see all the little details, you'll see some areas where I just totally gave up on. They were hidden anyway, so I just said, screw it. I'm just going to leave it. No one's going to see it. It doesn't matter. And sometimes that's what you got to do. And here I am mucking around with that back section again, and I've got all those edge loops coming together at that one point. Total nightmare. I totally goofed that up. And the perfectionist in me wants to go back and rebuild this model the right way, which is leaving the polygons untouched, unsmooth, and just beveling, instead of trying to add edge loops everywhere. So if you want to build a Tesla Cybertruck of your own in 3D, do not smooth it. I imagine that most people wouldn't, because the Cybertruck is so angular anyway. I have an obsession with crazy levels of detail, and I want to make everything looking as realistic and as best as possible. So sometimes I do go overboard, and it destroys me in certain situations. But oh well, it's just something that I've learned to live with. Now I'm going back through with the little details. I'm on the front bumper now, and I'm adding edge loops and trying to get that detail there. And this is something I hate doing with automotive 3D models, and that's adding in the door handles. Because normally, especially on very organically shaped cars, or very organic cars, or cars with organic shapes, it's hard to cut a section in a door and then not disturb the mesh around it. Luckily, with the Cybertruck, it was okay. I was able to get in there and cut things up fairly decently without disturbing the mesh at all, which was a very good thing, because I just had a lot of anxiety going into that particular piece, and I hate it when there's some things about automotive 3D modeling in Maya that is kind of frustrating. So it looks like I'm just about done with the main body now, and I was really looking forward to getting to the wheels and tires. That's always my favorite part of any automotive model. And forgot one thing, and that is the fuel door, or the fuel filler door. This was something that I did 3 or 4 times. You're only seeing one version of it now, but for some reason or another, I had a hard time cutting a hole in that panel and then not disturbing the mesh around it. So I was getting pinching and waviness in the panel no matter what I did, no matter how much I spread out my splines and how tight I try to keep everything. I just couldn't get rid of that pinching. And even in the final model, you'll see a little bit of pinching in some lighting conditions, and it's so frustrating. Most people probably wouldn't even notice it, but I know it's there, and it's what I see the very first time that I look at one of my renderings. And yeah, so frustrating. This is where doing UV maps is a better option sometimes, because you could just do a UV map of that panel and then just do a graphic cutout of that panel. But like I said, I like to do everything as realistic as possible. I like to have an actual panel cutout if possible, and that's why I pushed so hard with this particular piece. And yeah, you can see, so I had to modify that panel a little bit, which even went into the door, which even affected the shape of that rear door, so I had to go back to that rear door and fix that a little bit. And then this piece right here. This is the trim piece that goes around the rear cargo cover. And that cargo cover itself, I didn't record the entire process. I spent probably an hour and a half trying to figure out how to model those grooves in that panel. You think it's so simple, but it's not. And long story short, I just had to extrude edges vertically and then horizontally, and it was a lot more of a problem than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, the wheels, working on the wheels now, and again, this is just another design element that I didn't really appreciate until I started building in 3D. The Cybertruck wheels they're awesome, very simple, very basic, and again, you can see me adding edge loops to very very angular objects. And yeah, that's it. That is the model. I didn't record any of the process of doing the tires. Again, that was just another little bit of a nightmare all of its own, just simply because I couldn't find any good reference material for that, so I just had to wing it. Anyway, that's it. That's the process of building a Tesla Cybertruck in Maya with polygons. And like I said, I'm not the best 3D modeler, but if I can do it, anyone can. Anyway, if you have any questions, do feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll try to get to them as fast as I can. Otherwise, give it a big thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.